Welcome back, everybody, to the 2019 Portland Regional Championships. My name is Dweeha. Joining me at the desk right now is the one, the only, Gabby Snyder.
Hi, everybody. Still here. Still top 8. Still some amazing games.
We've done 3 rounds of top 8 so far, and we're ready to close out the last of the top 8 with our final top 8 match between Joseph Ugarte versus Raghav Malaviya, My Smart Money.
All right, so we saw both of these trainers on stream yesterday, I believe.
Yep, we did.
Well, you guys saw them. I don't think I saw them. So
we did. And,
do you have any previews of the matchup?
Previews of the matchup? I mean, they're ready to jump into the preview.
Hey, that works. I just want to applaud them for obviously hearing my sound cue and just perfect timing on that.
Yep, so we got Joseph running the team of Groudon, Yveltal, Incineroar, Metagross, Tapu Koko, and Venusaur. Raghav using the same team that Kimo Nishimura was using earlier with Rayquaza, Tapu Koko, Kyogre, Incineroar, Metagross, and Amoonguss. So, that Groudon Yveltal that you guys talked about a little bit in the pregame is here. We're finally seeing it brought to action. Of course, you have to watch out for that Venusaur too. But, Rayquaza's on the other side to try to mess around with that. Venusaur's fun.
I was going to say, this is very much a weather-centric matchup, which I don't think we've seen play out necessarily in the top 8 so far at this tournament. On one side of the field, we have that Kyogre and the Rayquaza, commonly known to just have really great synergy against Groudon teams, being able to, hit those water-type attacks in situations where, maybe the sunlight is still visible on the field. I don't want to use the term active because with airlock, you see it, but it's actually not there. But Joseph definitely has a lot of techs on his team. I think he's very comfortable with this team, having used some format of it for the past few weeks at different tournaments, as we touched on earlier. And this is really Yveltal's time to shine. Raghav does not have Xerneas on his side of the field. Yes, the Tapu Koko can deal a ton of damage to it via some very powerful electric-type attacks, but overall, those Snarls, if that's what that Yveltal decides to make an appearance for, we'll start to add up.
Some mirror leads here from both players leading with Incineroar and Tapu Koko. So, all right, Intimidates are going to come around, and that's going to be important on that Incineroar. Not going to matter too much for those Tapu Kokos. So, both players realizing this is the best options.
Yeah, some indication of how these Pokemon are trained speed-wise, though, which could come in handy later. We saw both the Electric Terrain and the Intimidate activate first on Raghav's side of the field, so could be an indication that his Pokemon are faster, could be an indication of something like a speed tie. Only Joseph knows that information right now, and I think we'll see that sort of play out in terms of who or what gets targeted by Fake Out this turn.
And it looks like both players are just going to swap Fake Outs onto the opposing Tapu Kokos there, as pretty much just some damage being dealt on as both Tapu Koko flinch. So
yeah, it's a nice trade of damage, though. You never know where those little bits of chip will start to add up. I'm really curious to see what these trainers are going to do for this turn. None of these Pokemon can necessarily deal some big damage to the opposing ones. I think we'll try and see a little bit of switching around with U-turns from the Incineroar and a bit of speed control revealed from Raghav with that Electro Web.
Yep, so Electro Web revealing on Raghav's side that Tapu Koko is going to be based on support, but it looks like Joseph's Tapu Koko here is going to use the Guardian of Alola Z move that we saw on stream yesterday. Going to chip away at 3/4 of one Pokemon's hit points, and of course, one great thing about that is that it puts everything pretty much into range for the next hit to KO. So here comes Tapu Koko's Guardian of Alola, and you just...
It's an animation. I mean, talk about like freaking Titans going at it, and plus you have your protagonist character just looking like they're out for blood.
3/4 damage done to that Tapu Koko over on Raghav's side here, as Incineroar on Raghav's side uses U-turn, just dealing some damage, but most importantly preserving that Intimidate for later on, as Raghav now gets to react to the field and the situation. But you got to expect that either Joseph's going to go for the KO on that Tapu Koko with the Incineroar, or go for a U-turn of its own to try to pivot as Kyogre switches in on Raghav's side.
Yeah, if that Incineroar was looking to get a KO here onto the opposing Tapu Koko, it most likely went for something like the Flare Blitz. So it's the Kyogre pivot in from Raghav here is definitely going to be advantageous, but I feel like it's so early on in the game. Joseph going for the U-turn here to deal, again, just a little bit of chip to that Kyogre will give him the opportunity to react. Now, you have to wonder what Pokemon he's going to switch in here. If he switches in something like the Groudon, and Raghav does have that Rayquaza in the back, he could easily switch in the Rayquaza, catch that Groudon off guard, and probably KO it with something like literally any water-type move. But instead, it will be the Yveltal that's sent out onto the field, which is a great way to just sort of weaken how much damage both this Kyogre and this Tapu Koko can do. If this Yveltal knows something like a Sucker Punch, this could also be an opportunity to just try and KO that Tapu Koko before it can deal big damage as well.
Incineroar switches in here. Again, that Intimidate's going to be good against that Yveltal if it goes for the Sucker Punch, but you have to watch out too because Yveltal has access to that foul play. The Electro Web's pretty important right now because those Pokemon are going to be slower than anything on Raghav's side of the field, as here is a Nature's Madness connects onto that Yveltal, bringing it down to 50% of its hit points. Yveltal retaliates with a Snarl, going to drop a special attack stats on that Tapu Koko, but again, that's more of a support Tapu Koko, just, being able to deal damage with Nature's Madness here, as Joseph's Tapu Koko a little bit supportive too, using Light Screen.
That's a really interesting tech against just very specially oriented teams like Raghav's. I mean, looking at the Pokemon he has, both on the field and in Team Preview. Yes, there is the Incineroar, the Rayquaza, and the Metagross that are known to be physical attackers, but Incineroar not known to be the most damage-dealing Pokemon, and from what we've seen from Raghav so far with the Kyogre and the Tapu Koko, that Light Screen could be very important in just allowing Joseph's Pokemon to stick around for a little bit, potentially even giving Groudon an out for the matchup if Rayquaza and Kyogre end up on the field at the same time.
Yep, and another Electro Web from Raghav's Tapu Koko. Again, just trying to play that speed control game here, as a Fake Out was exchanged from Raghav's Incineroar. So now coming in this turn, it's Tapu Koko and Incineroar, two very strong Pokemon.
Yeah, I think both these trainers are trying to find an opening for their restricted Pokemon to come out onto the field and deal some big damage. So, we're seeing the Volt Switch revealed from Raghav's Tapu Koko. I wouldn't be surprised if this is like a Volt Switch U-turn kind of turn here from Raghav, at least. We didn't see a Fake Out from Joseph, even though he just sent his own Incineroar out onto the field. So, lots of switching, lots of positioning, just trying to line everything up just right so that, we can start to see some of those bigger plays happen.
Yep, as Volt Switches are occurring here, Tapu Kokos are pivoting out. Rayquaza switches in on Raghav's side for the Tapu Koko, as Tapu Koko on Joseph's side switches out for the Yveltal, as looks like, more U-turns from Incineroar
Volt
over
Switch,
on Raghav's side.
Volt Switch, U-turn.
Incineroar on Raghav's side now can either go back to the Tapu Koko or the Kyogre. Tapu Koko already heavily damaged, might risk it being KO'd if it switches in and takes a U-turn. So Kyogre switches in, a bit more of a healthy option to make sure that you don't lose Pokemon in that Pokemon count. Although, one of the great things about Tapu Koko is that you can always just Volt Switch out, but here's a U-turn from that Incineroar, and here we go, another switch. So a turn of Volt Switch, a turn of U-turns.
Yeah, I like how Raghav has positioned himself, though, because even if Joseph sends in his Groudon here, and that's like the last Pokemon that he's brought into this game, the Rayquaza's on the field next to the Kyogre. Weather is not something that that Kyogre has to necessarily worry about. It is unfortunate, though, that the Tapu Koko from Joseph's side of the field returned when the electric train went away, but out of all the Pokemon that need that electric train to do big damage, I don't think you necessarily require that against the Kyogre. So Joseph's still in a good spot. He's going to have to find a way to try and move around this Rayquaza. It's certainly the most threatening Pokemon on the field right now, but it's already been damaged, and this Yveltal could certainly, try to go for a straight knockout with something like a foul play. So I think Joseph has an opening here if he wants to sort of stop the slower play and start, racking up bigger damage onto Raghav. So we'll see how he decides to play it out.
Rayquaza Force Protect doesn't want to take a foul play or a Sucker Punch, as Tapu Koko on Joseph's side uses that Volt Switch into that Rayquaza slot as a Snarl from Yveltal, trying to mitigate the amount of damage that this Kyogre can do.
Light Screen plus the Snarl, though. This Water Spout, I mean,
not going to do much at all.
Kyogre is almost at full health, but look at that. Just hardly any damage to either of these Pokemon. Kyogre, I feel like it has to leave the field now if it wants to have a chance to come back and deal big damage later. But, looking at the spot that Raghav is in, Intimidate probably won't help him much, in terms of weakening damage on the opposing side of the field. And really the only thing that would do would just try to give Kyogre an opening later on. And if Joseph is able to capitalize on that and just, try to go for the Volt Switch and literally any other attack into this Rayquaza, I think Joseph is going to be in a great spot, even though more of his Pokemon are currently in the yellow.
Rayquaza on Raghav's side, Mega evolving this turn, activating that Delta Stream. It's going to be important because it will weaken the amount of damage that a Volt Switch into that slot will do, but Tapu Koko instead uses Nature's Madness on his own Evoltal to get the berry to activate. So
good. That's good. That is an incredible play. Since Nature's Madness consistently does half of your health, you can sort of eyeball to see, where that magic number is, where the Pinch Berry will activate. But
is it going to survive this Dragon Ascent here? Easily does right there. So smart play right there from Joseph to go for that side Nature's Madness, as foul play from that Evoltal targets down that Rayquaza after that defense drop and gets the KO. So wow, Joseph playing exceptionally well right here. The Mysterious Winds do disappear, but here's an Origin Pulse.
Oh, and it misses.
Yeah, so the Origin Pulse, one of the issues is obviously not the most accurate. Connects with that Evoltal, gets KO. Tapu Koko still remains on the field, though, because of that miss, as Light Screen wears off.
Yeah, I don't think the Evoltal was necessarily the KO that Raghav was looking for with that Origin Pulse. I love that play from Joseph, using something like a Nature's Madness to target down your partner Pokemon. Usually you only target your partner when it's going to do like a teeny amount of damage, or confidently know, and that's what Nature's Madness gives you. It's just, okay, I'm going to cut your health in half, and if you're within range of activating that berry, that's an easy way to just give yourself a little extra health, be able to take the Dragon Ascent, and then fire back and KO that Rayquaza. So it is unfortunate that the Yveltal then got knocked out due to the Origin Pulse, but given the fact that the Tapu Koko is on the field and Joseph has revealed that he brought his Metagross with him, I think he's in a very good spot moving forward, since Metagross, it's worried about this Incineroar, but there's not rain up on the field for that Kyogre, and this Tapu Koko as well could potentially go for another Light Screen to just try and protect its buddy for a little bit longer. Just a really great positioning from Joseph here.
Raghav switches out that Incineroar, preserving that Intimidate for later against the possible Mega Metagross that will be taking the field shortly, as Tapu Koko on Joseph's side protects itself, as Metagross protects itself as well, scared about that fake out maneuver. And here's an Origin Pulse from that Kyogre hitting into both protects. So smart defensive play right there from Joseph to just kind of stall out that fake out. And Raghav too, realizing there's a chance that, might be doing something a bit defensive, can probably get a free switch in right here.
Yeah, but it's unfortunate that that free switch in comes in with the cost of setting up the electric terrain once again on the field. That's definitely going to benefit, I think, Joseph's Tapu Koko a little bit more than his own, considering that, one, his Tapu Koko is most likely within range of getting knocked out from something like a Bullet Punch, and two, that Kyogre is really the last Pokemon that Raghav has remaining that can deal big damage to Joseph's team. So I like how he switches around here. Maybe he was trying to catch Joseph off guard with an early Mega Evolution of that Metagross, but Joseph just safely conserving that Mega Evolution, keeping Clear Body around so that those Intimidates won't stack up onto the Metagross.
And you hate to see it right there. Right as you switch in your Incineroar, the Mega Metagross decides to Mega Evolve and sacrifice that Clear Body ability. So here we go now. Coming into this turn, looks like Tapu Koko is going to be using Volt Switch onto that Incineroar, doing good damage boosted by that electric terrain, and allowing Joseph to be able to switch right back in that Incineroar, which is going to be pivotal. I mean, that's another Intimidate as well as being able to get out another fake out option, but it might cost Joseph big damage here as Kyogre is able to go for an attack. Mega Metagross uses Stomping Tantrum, connects with that Incineroar, big damage, and gets a KO from that range. So now at the cost of taking a Origin Pulse, but
or
looks
not.
Looks like Incineroar dodges it though. So, boy, it's not. Raghav's Kyogre is not hitting its marks.
No, it's really unfortunate because I think the best thing that Raghav could have gotten out of that turn after, seeing the Intimidate come in just a turn too early onto that Mega Metagross was a KO onto that Incineroar, but that Origin Pulse miss just does not do enough. Even if the Origin Pulse did connect with that with that Incineroar, the presence or the lack of fake out on his own side of the field would have meant that Tapu Koko and the Metagross would have been attacking first. So I think Joseph is in a very comfortable position here to wrap things up as we do see that Bullet Punch do enough damage to KO Tapu Koko.
Yeah, and it's going to come down to, how... I mean, Kyogre does have the best spread moves in the format, right? Origin Pulse, not going to be opting for Water Spout, but if this Kyogre can connect on an Origin Pulse, and at this point, maybe get the KO on that Mega Metagross, that will be very helpful. But of course, that Tapu Koko's just sitting in the back, and there's so much damage being dealt right here.
There is so much damage being dealt, but the Kyogre, I mean, it is able to connect another Origin Pulse, so we get to see how much damage it's able to do.
No damage at all.
And it is because the weather's gone, if you think about it. I mean, Raghav, he made the choice to Mega Evolve that Rayquaza earlier on in the game, and as a result, the rain was removed from the field, and then Rayquaza was removed from the field while Kyogre remained. So I think if we're talking about adjustments going into Game 2, like keeping the weather around is going to be really key, especially since Joseph, he didn't bring the Groudon to this matchup. He only brought the Yveltal, and I think recognizing that and maybe trying to take advantage of that is going to be key if Raghav wants to try and bring himself back into, Game 2 and then take Game 3 to move on in this tournament.
Yeah, so smart plays right there from Joseph, being able to... I mean, that side Nature's Madness was brilliant in order to allow that Yveltal to survive and just get the KO on that Rayquaza.
Yeah. So, that was probably one of the most pivotal turns, I think, of that entire Game 1.
Absolutely. I mean, removing that big offensive threat and that Mega Rayquaza over on Raghav's side of the field, it's always just a sigh of relief, I feel like.
Yeah. But what's really interesting to me is the fact that Joseph...
both players already locked in their teams.
Yeah, that's interesting too, but...
they know what they want.
They know what they want.
They know what they want.
What I was going to say is, like... We only saw one mode of Joseph's team in that Game 1. Just the Yveltal, the Tapu Koko, the Incineroar, and the Metagross was so just demanding in terms of pressure. We didn't even get to see the Groudon or the Venusaur make an appearance, and that's certainly an adjustment that's open to Joseph if he decides that he wants to maybe take a bit of a more aggressive start to this game, too.
It's still so tough, though. I mean, you're facing... I mean, you got two Pokemon on Raghav's side of the field that can, mess with your weather abilities. So, the leads here are... completely changed up. Incineroar and Kyogre for Raghav, while Joseph leads with Metagross and Tapu Koko. So, different leads, still some similarities in that Tapu Koko and Incineroar. So,
I like this adjustment from Raghav, though. Having the Fake Out and the Kyogre side by side mean that, yes, one of Joseph's Pokemon is going to be able to connect an attack. Most likely it's going to be that Metagross, but Kyogre will be guaranteed at least one Origin Pulse in the rain without Light Screen or Snarl or any of the other ways that Joseph tried to disrupt that big damage. So I think Raghav's going to be forced to adjust starting in turn 2, maybe even turn 3, depending on how this plays out, but not going for the Fake Out, which is an interesting call. You have to wonder if this is going to be a protect, get the Amoonguss on the field, and then just try and keep that buddy Kyogre safe.
Most likely that is going to be what is happening, but Raghav essentially gets Amoonguss in fairly safe, as it's just a round of protects right there, as Metagross's protect fails because it's the last one to move on the field. But now Amoonguss is going to be providing great support for that Kyogre.
Well, only to a certain extent. I mean, Electric Terrain is active on the field, which means that Spore isn't going to be an option for support. And even though Amoonguss could redirect attacks with Rage Powder, Tapu Koko could easily go for a Light Screen here and just, again, reduce damage. And in Joseph's shoes from Game 1, reducing damage, I think, was what allowed him the edge. So I think Raghav needs to find a way to disrupt this strategy, and unfortunately, I don't think Amoonguss can help much with that.
Yep, Amoonguss using Rage Powder, drawing all the attention away as Tapu Koko goes for the Light Screen, realizing, I'm probably not going to be able to hit into that Kyogre, might as well provide as much support as possible using Light Screen, and that pays off its dividends, but still does so much damage right there. Tapu Koko hangs on, almost 50% damage dealt to that Yveltal.
Fortunately for Raghav's sake, Amoonguss could try and target down the Yveltal with a Spore here, but Yveltal is going to get one attack in the progress. And I like how Amoonguss is just trying to keep this Kyogre safe. We'll probably see another Water Spout from this Kyogre this turn, but Light Screen is just such a good move in this situation.
Yeah, against most Pokemon on Joseph's side of the field, Amoonguss is so powerful because all these Pokemon can mostly have single target attacks. So, we've seen every move from Tapu Koko on Joseph's side. No spread, Electro Web, no Discharge or anything like that. So Amoonguss pretty free to just be able to Rage Powder and protect this Kyogre. So another Water Spout is easily going to be used here at full health as Guardian Lola targets down that Amoonguss, bringing... Oh, well, I forgot about the Snarl. But it's like a weird move because it's like more utility, not so much damage-wise.
Yeah, you're definitely snarling here to get the special attack drop on that Kyogre and not to try and KO that Amoonguss. But again, it will be enough to knock out that Tapu Koko, and we'll have to see if that really pays off for Raghav moving forwards, because if you go back to previous games, it really was the Tapu Koko that applied a lot of the pressure on Joseph's side of the field. Fortunately for Joseph, he is able to utilize that Pinch Berry once again and end a turn with more health than he began. And this Yveltal certainly can go for a Snarl for a KO onto this Amoonguss in this turn. But, Kyogre, again, relatively unthreatened right now because of the absence of that Tapu Koko. And if Joseph brought the same Pokemon to this matchup, which I believe so far he has, it's going to be, it's a lot different now. I think that Amoonguss was able to do its job and protect Kyogre long enough to remove the Tapu Koko from the field, and that was the key adjustment that Raghav was looking to make.
Yeah, that Amoonguss is so huge right now. We'll succumb to another Snarl, but we'll be able to at least possibly redirect one more. We'll be able to at least redirect one more attack with Rage Powder. So, this Amoonguss, it's really bothersome Pokemon, just being out on the field.
Yeah.
You're right, it can still threaten the Yveltal with a Spore as well as Kyogre protects itself here, realizing that it's probably going to be taking a lot of damage. And, so Amoonguss protects itself from the Fake Out as well, so essentially a turn wasted as Yveltal goes for a Snarl. No Fake Out from the Incineroar, though, so Incineroar just using U-turn against that Amoonguss, so really just threatening that Fake Out, but...
Yeah,
Raghav saw into it.
Yeah, I like how Joseph, went for the U-turn rather than the Fake Out, knowing that a double Protect was likely. We saw the Amoonguss go for a Protect earlier when Chemo was playing, and as Len mentioned in the past, these are the same teams. So just playing it very safe on Raghav's side of the field, going for the double Protect, switching out the Amoonguss to get some health back with the Regenerator ability, knowing that even if you do Rage Powder at this point in time, you're really only going to redirect a Snarl or maybe a Foul Play, which still will not do much damage to Kyogre, which is a very specially attacking Pokemon.
Yeah, and a Snarl from that Yveltal connects onto that Kyogre, again dropping that special attack stat. Irrelevant to the Incineroar, some chip damage dealt to it here, but most importantly that Amoonguss is safely out and able to use Regenerate it, and that Incineroar dodges the Origin Pulse as it connects with that Yveltal, and again, all those Snarls are doing so much work, and that Light Screen as well, the knockoff onto the Incineroar on Raghav's side, not knocking any item off, indicating that it is carrying a Z move.
Some kind of Z crystal. We'll have to see which one it is, but a really unfortunate Origin Pulse miss there. I think with the combination of Snarls and Light Screens, we would have been looking at a KO, but potentially this turn, we could have seen, Kyogre go for another Origin Pulse or even a Water Spout to just try and deal some damage for that knockout. I like the adjustment back to Water Spout here. I think Raghav realizing that, some damage is better than none, and it's incredible how much Light Scream and Snarl add up.
Yeah, and here is the malicious Moonsault from the Incineroar. Gonna try to come out and deal some damage boosted by that Dark Aura as well, so...
I guess if you know that your opponent's holding a Z Crystal, there's no reason keeping it a secret.
No, not at all. And gonna Moonsault into this Incineroar on Joseph's side here, trying to get out as much damage as possible onto it. And it does good damage right there, bringing it down to range for a possible Origin Pulse or Water Spout KO, as Incineroar on Joseph's side uses U-turn and switches out, though, so protecting that Incineroar, saving it for one more Intimidate, at least in the back.
Yeah, I like how Raghav used the Z-move there. I think a lot of trainers might think that going for a Dark-type Z-move, even with the Dark Aura currently active on the field into an opposing Incineroar, may not be the most optimum play, but you have to look at what position that Incineroar is in now. I mean, provided that Light Screen expires and Kyogre doesn't get another Snarl or two stacked up onto it in the meantime, this Kyogre is going to be able to easily remove that Incineroar from the field with something like that Water Spout. So just a good position for later. I don't think that Z-move would have done much much to that Yveltal either. So again, just making sure that you're keeping equal pressure onto your opponent and just trying to maintain an advantage, even though this Kyogre is really having a tough time just getting the damage output that it's accustomed to.
Yeah, Raghav is doing a really good job with the board position as well as Metagross on Joseph's side. Mega Evolves here right as Incineroar switches out. So going to be able to come right back in and use Intimidate as the Stomping Tantrum connects with that Amoonguss and gets the KO as Yveltal now gets to move. Uses Foul Play against that Kyogre. Still does not too bad damage, bringing Kyogre down to 50% as another Origin Pulse miss here. Not being able to connect with that Mega Metagross and connects with that Yveltal for so little damage.
Yeah, and as Raghav's losing Pokemon, this poor Kyogre is just getting stuck out onto the field with those Snarl special attack drops. We do finally see Raghav's final Pokemon in the form of that Rayquaza, but I think Raghav needs to switch out the Kyogre here. I mean, it's down to half of its health, so you know that Water Spout isn't going to be doing a lot. You know that the Mega Metagross will be moving first. He needs to find a way to deal some big damage to these Pokemon, and just all these turns where Kyogre's been forced to hang around with Light Screen, with Snarl, just, they really did add up over time. And I love how Joseph just kept Raghav in a position where he couldn't afford to make these switches.
Yep, as Incineroar switches in for Raghav's side, as Kyogre switches out. Rayquaza on Raghav's side will Mega Evolve here, so great prioritization of Raghav to save that Kyogre for later on, being able to have that heavy rain.
Yeah.
So here we go now. Coming into this turn, Rayquaza on Raghav's side uses Dragon Ascent, able to get connected with that Yveltal. Gonna get the KO here, so that Yveltal finally succumbs and gets knocked out. So that Rayquaza pretty much kind of did its job, just getting out some damage. Not the best matchup against that Mega Metagross. So here comes Mega Metagross with a Stomping Tantrum, connects with that Incineroar. It is intimidated now as Incineroar hangs on.
And I think that KO there onto the Yveltal was what Raghav was looking for, knowing that Joseph's last two Pokemon in this matchup are the severely weakened Incineroar on his own side of the field alongside of the Mega Metagross. Mega Metagross traditionally struggles with dealing big damage to Pokemon like Kyogre or Rayquaza unless they have, like a move specifically dedicated to dealing that damage. In the past, Mega Metagross has done very well with a move like Ice Punch or maybe one of the other elemental punches, but we haven't seen that revealed yet. We've seen the Meteor Mash and the Stomping Tantrum. So I'll be curious to see, if this Metagross has a move that will allow it to sort of navigate this situation, but Raghav very smartly removing the Incineroar from field.
Yeah, so Raghav just going for the Fake Out and the Extreme Speed, doubling up to get the KO onto the opposing Incineroar as Mega Metagross retaliates with a KO onto Raghav's Mega Metagross. Or, sorry, not the Mega Metagross, but the Incineroar. So Kyogre now will be able to come in with that heavy rain. So this Rayquaza doesn't seem like it has many options to hit this Mega Metagross. So this Mega Metagross is gonna have to try to prioritize the KO the opposing Kyogre. Although it is intimidated.
It is intimidated, which is going to help a little bit. But again, it's a very tall ask. It's a 2-versus-1 situation. Mega Metagross, it can be bulky. It's definitely not one of the more sort of, flimsy Mega Pokemon. But in this matchup, I think it's really going to struggle to find an opening. Joseph does have the advantage of speed. This Mega Metagross should outspeed this Kyogre. And could potentially outspeed that Mega Rayquaza, though we now learn that is not true.
Yep, so now that no protects at all, Mega Metagross using Iron Head connects onto that Kyogre. Is Kyogre going to be able to move, or is it going to flinch? He uses Origin Pulse, connects with an Origin Pulse boosted by the rain. So that's going to deal some damage right there and gets an outright KO on that Mega Metagross. So Joseph right there really fishing for that flinch.
Yeah, and the fact that the Origin Pulse was finally single target as well, I think definitely helped out there. So just a very different game too. If you think back to how Game 1 played out versus how Game 2 played out, in Game 1, Joseph was able to keep that Tapu Koko around on the field to the point where that Kyogre, I think, didn't really feel comfortable going for those big attacks. Raghav had to keep switching things around to try and find Kyogre that opening, but by the time he found it, it was already too too late. There was too much damage sort of added up on his team. In game 2, he was able to find a KO onto that Tapu Koko very early on, and even though the Kyogre did sit around on the field with those snarls, with that light screen active on the field, it was able to sort of outlast the Tapu Koko and come back once its threats have been removed, and then just, okay, I'm going to click Origin Pulse, and then, I'll use Sword Stance on my Rayquaza so that if you do somehow flinch or knock out my Kyogre, I do have the advantage in the 2v1 or the 1v1 situation.
Yeah.
So just, even though these trainers brought the same Pokemon, we saw a very different gameplay out. I liked that prioritization from Raghav. I think Joseph has to respect the possibility that Raghav will try and fish an early KO on that Tapu Koko again, and honestly, keep that Tapu Koko safe until later. Going into this game 3, I think that on its own, Snarl from Yveltal did a really good job of keeping Joseph's Pokemon safe on the field. And if he's able to sort of find that opening again for that Yveltal to just, force that Kyogre off the field, I think he'll be in a good position.
Both players back to their leads from game 1 here. That Incineroar and Tapu Koko leads for both players, although both builds of both sets are completely different from each other.
Very different.
So that's one great thing about just watching these things. You might see the same Pokemon, but they have different compositions.
And different purposes as well. We saw that Joseph's Tapu Koko is carrying that Tapu EMZ, being able to drop a Pokemon down to 1/4 of its health. Something like that might come in handy here, especially if you target down like the opposing Incineroar. I think Raghav was really looking to that Incineroar to switch around a lot and try and give his Kyogre and that Rayquaza openings to attack. So if you're able to deal some big damage to that Incineroar early on in this game, I think that's going to give Joseph an advantage. Though you got to respect the fake out trade. You always got to respect that.
Turn 1, you fake out the opposing Tapu Koko, and then you move on to the next turn, trying to figure out what the best set of options are. So again, both Incineroars just exchange fakeouts with the opposing Tapu Kokos.
Yeah, in game 1, we saw Tapu Koko on Raghav's side of the field, and during turn 2, go for an Electro Web, trying to find some speed control. I don't think Electro Web necessarily was too helpful in terms of this matchup, just given the light screen on that Tapu Koko plus the snarls. It's not really speed that's an issue for Raghav, it's just being able to deal damage. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see this Tapu Koko switch things up just a little bit.
Yeah, so the Tapu Koko on Raghav's side using Skydrop here, bringing the opposing Incineroar up into the sky, as Tapu Koko on Joseph's side uses Light Screen, which is going to come pay off later on for when that Kyogre takes the field, or even if Raghav's Tapu Koko decides to use Volt Switch or even Electro Web here, as the Incineroar on Raghav's side will utilize U-Turn to switch out and pivot here as Joseph's Incineroar is just chilling up in the sky.
Yeah, I like how Raghav revealed Skydrop here, since that stopped Joseph from being able to pivot immediately this turn. Tapu Koko could very easily go for something like a Volt Switch next turn to give Yveltal the opportunity to make an appearance, but, that Yveltal isn't going to be on the field at the start of this turn, and as a result, it's only going to be the light screen that is weakening the damage from these water-type attacks from this Kyogre. Furthermore, that Incineroar is stuck up into the sky and will not have an opportunity to U-turn or switch until after this Kyogre attacks it when it's returned to the ground. So Raghav does have an opportunity here to deal, again, some nice damage to this Incineroar. Probably not going to be a knockout thanks to that light screen, but just slowly start whittling down health. And as we saw in game 2, Kyogre isn't really intimidated by the fact that light screen is up on the field, provided that Raghav can find a way to protect it.
Yep, and Kyogre, forced to protect itself here, does not want to walk right into taking a Guardian of Alola unprotected. As the Skydrop releases Incineroar, looks like Tapu Koko just goes for a Volt Switch instead, as Incineroar now able to use U-Turn after being freed from that Skydrop. Switching out, great opportunity for Yveltal to possibly take the field to go for some Snarls.
I think it has to at this point. It's great that Tapu Koko was able to get light screen up, but it was the combination of the Snarls and the light screen, I think, that really stopped Raghav in game 1. But instead, it's going to be that Metagross taking the field. Metagross does have Stomping Tantrum, as we've seen from earlier. Stomping Tantrum would be great against that Tapu Koko or the Incineroar on Raghav's side of the field. So it's weird that Joseph is going immediately for the Mega Evolution. That's an adjustment, I think, compared to how he's played it in previous games, knowing that Raghav has an Intimidator in the back. But in this case, that might just be enough.
Yeah, as Raghav's Tapu Koko uses Sky Drop on the opposing Tapu Koko. Here's an Iron Head into that Kyogre slot. Not very effective, but it does flinch right there. So a way for Raghav to try to protect the Kyogre from getting Guardian of Alolan, but
only for so long.
Yeah, that might happen right now.
I mean, to the benefit of that chip damage from the Iron Head, Guardian of Alola won't deal as much damage technically, but it will still leave Kyogre, very, very low on health, and Metagross could more than easily try and pick up the knockout. So Raghav forced here to switch out, but just a really, a very interesting play there. I do love how that Metagross was able to just immediately threaten that Kyogre. You have to wonder, though, how different things would have been if that Kyogre was able to land an Origin Pulse or something that last turn.
Yep, and Tapu Koko on Joseph's side is freed from the Sky Drop here, as Tapu Koko on Joseph's side uses Volt Switch, again, just preserving that Guardian of Alola later on.
And the Tapu Koko as well, as long as Kyogre's around as a threat.
Yeah, so that Tapu Koko is going to go back into Joseph's bench here, and Incineroar takes the field. So, again, it's all about board position, and both players are really struggling to try to find that opening. They're both like sort of scouting each other out, just prodding a little bit and seeing when they can actually get some open moves out there as Stomping Tantrum connects onto the Tapu Koko. But again, that Intimidate is so important as the electricity disappears from the terrain, or from the field.
I like how we're seeing like a return to slow form here from Raghav and Joseph in this game 3. I think both these trainers have the tools to try and find that opening, but just very smartly sort of respecting the fact that, they both have these options, constantly switching out the Pokemon that are threats, trying to keep this Tapu Koko safe on Joseph's side of the field, knowing that it's what the Kyogre is really, truly afraid of. Just great prioritization.
Yep, Tapu Koko on Joseph's side takes the field yet again, as Incineroar just straight up switches out, as the Rayquaza on Raghav's side takes the field here. And again, it's just a revolving door of board position here as Tapu Koko switches out with Volt Switch as it lands into the opposing Incineroar on Joseph's side. And again, Raghav being able to safely send out the Kyogre for now.
I don't know if that's safe, though, because we've seen this Tapu Koko move slower than Raghav's Tapu Koko almost every single turn.
For this turn, it's
right,
pretty
because
safe,
it just switched in.
So the Incineroar U-turn again hits into that Kyogre slot, and now, again, it's just all about pivoting, all about board position here. It's pretty tense.
It is very tense. I mean, to Kyogre's benefit, it's finally standing alongside Rayquaza, which and Light Screen is gone as well, so this could be Kyogre's opportunity to try and find an opening, but this Tapu Koko will be moving before it. This Metagross will also have an opportunity to attack, and unfortunately for Rayquaza, it really can only target one of these Pokemon down, and I don't think Dragon Ascent will do enough to KO that Metagross anyway, so Raghav, I think, forced to, again, keep switching, keep laying down the Intimidate onto the opposing Metagross and just try and find that opening to deal that big damage. I mean, we still even haven't seen the Z move from Joseph yet.
No, not yet.
Just waiting for perfect timing.
Yeah, more switching just happening as the Rayquaza Mega Evolves here, activating that Delta Stream. The Tapu Koko on Joseph's side goes for a Volt Switch, won't be doing too much damage against it, but of course you can always just threaten it with the Nature's Madness, or even go for the Guardian of Alola straight up here, as a Volt Switch from that Tapu Koko on Joseph's side just lands into that Incineroar. Again, slowly chipping away at it as it finally drops below 50% of its hit points here. One thing about this Mega Rayquaza that doesn't really have anything that can do to try to hit into that Mega Metagross.
No.
You can always just try to go for a Swords Dance, but you're just getting a couple boosts, which are just going to be negated anyways by this Incineroar that just right immediately switched in.
Yeah, and what I find interesting as well is the fact that, again, just this is such a slow game. You have to start looking at how much damage these Pokemon are racking up, and it seems like on Raghav's side of the field, he's constantly being forced to respond to Joseph, and as a result, he's the one who's taking a majority of the damage in this possibility. And yes, he has the Intimidate available to him on the Fake Out available to him on the field, and we've seen this Incineroar again sort of move consistently faster, but just because that damage is again adding up. He has to try and keep things safe. And, I think Joseph is okay with just maintaining this slow pace as a result.
Yeah, and there's the fake out from that Incineroar into the Mega Rayquaza as Joseph picks up a KO here with that Sonic Tantrum onto the opposing Tapu Koko. So Joseph finding options to just continuously deal damage here as Raghav continues to try to find the best board position to have in order to start striking, as this might be it here as Kyogre takes the field here.
Yep. Kyogre takes the field. Light Screen is no longer active, and Tapu Koko isn't currently present on the field. The only way Joseph can get Tapu Koko onto the field is to go for a U-turn onto this Incineroar, which should be slower and as a result probably not happen, or manually switch out one of his Pokemon. So by letting Tapu Koko get KO'd there, he's found himself a opening, but he really needs to take advantage of this opening. But Joseph making an amazing adjustment for Game 3. It is not that Yveltal who's his final Pokemon. It's the Groudon. Groudon
takes the field at the perfect opportunity. Once that Kyogre hit the field and once Rayquaza has already Mega Evolved, what a time to allow Groudon to take the field here. So no Yveltal in the back for Joseph this time, as a Dragon Ascent from that Mega Rayquaza is connecting with that Primal Groudon here. After a Swords Dance boost, intimidated, but with the Swords Dance boost, still does some pretty decent damage to that Groudon here as the defenses finally drop. And here's an Iron Head from that Mega Metagross, connects into that Mega Rayquaza, does not get the KO, and Mega Rayquaza actually eats the berry right there.
So it's possible that an extreme speed from this Mega Rayquaza, given the fact that it is at a +1 attack boost right now, would be enough to knock out that Groudon. But what a great play from Joseph. I was wondering, why was he only revealing 3 of his Pokemon? Was he waiting for the perfect time to reveal Yveltal, or maybe he made an adjustment? And this is the kind of adjustment you need to be making if you're in the top 8 of a tournament looking to move on to the semifinals, or maybe even beyond that. You just knowing that once your opponent has the Mega Rayquaza on the field and once Kyogre's on the field next to it, there's nothing really to stop you from setting up Sun to mitigate those water spouts or those Origin Pulses that we've been seeing throughout Games 1 and 2. That's a great way to handle the situation. Now, this Groudon is still in a lot of danger, and it's certainly possible that this Kyogre could go for something like a Water-type attack once it's removed from the field, but, that Kyogre is going to probably take another Iron Head after that. And as a result, we'll be that much closer to getting KO'd, or maybe even just flinched like we saw earlier in this game.
Yeah, Incineroar takes the field here. Again, another big Intimidate being dropped from that Incineroar on Raghav's side. Really protecting that Rayquaza for later on. Also, got to now respect that Rayquaza switch in here, as an Iron Head from that Mega Metagross lands into that Incineroar slot, not doing much damage at all. So here's an Ice Beam from that Kyogre into that Groudon slot. So again, you have to be respecting the possible switch in to take away that Sun.
Well, what's interesting to me is that Raghav, by switching in his own Incineroar there for the Rayquaza, was respecting the option that Joseph could have switched in his own Incineroar for really either of these Pokemon to try and avoid the extreme speed KO onto that Groudon. So I think that was a smart play from him to try and keep that Rayquaza for later, but unfortunately it came at the cost of losing that +1 attack boost. And this Kyogre is in a situation now where, given the fact that Raghav didn't switch out one of his own Pokemon, is most likely going to be Ice Beaming and Incineroar, which is not the most optimal play to be making right now.
Yep, as Mega Metagross protects itself here. No switch into that Rayquaza yet, but Incineroar on Raghav's side uses Fake Out as...
Oh!
Yeah, alright, still using that Origin Pulse.
That was a really good call there. Kyogre, or Raghav, recognizing the fact that if Groudon does decide to leave the field there, that really is the most damage it could be doing. And even though it misses the KO onto that Incineroar, it is definitely within range from really anything knocking it out moving forward. So a very good play by Raghav there. I think that was probably the best he could have expected from that turn. But, this Groudon can still easily switch in and, again, just start applying a ton of pressure to these Pokemon. I mean, the Tapu Koko is still around as well, so Raghav needs to be thinking about his win condition later on in the game, and I think a lot of that is going to rely on trying to get this Rayquaza out onto the field, not intimidated with a Swords Dance boost or two, so that Extreme Speed can pick up those final KOs to clean up things for him. And I think finding that opening is going to be very difficult given how much damage he's taken just throughout the entirety of this game.
Yep, as Rayquaza takes the field again, activating that Delta Stream. So, yeah, that's a pretty good move right there, as Incineroar on Joseph's side uses Fake Out, lands in that Kyogre, bringing it down to under 50%. Really just trying to play this end game here. In case that Primal Groudon does come in, you also have to watch out for Mega Rayquaza possibly trying to target down some attacks.
Yeah, and that Mega Rayquaza is going to... It's in a decent spot because it is, on the field. The Incineroar is already on the field as well, but Joseph could easily just switch that Incineroar out if that Intimidate is something it wants to save for later. We still haven't seen the Z move from Tapu Koko. We still haven't seen, it deal that... that big damage that it can do, but I don't even think it needs the Z move anymore, just because Raghav's Pokemon have taken, again, just so much damage throughout the entirety of this game. I think if Joseph is able to knock out either of the Pokemon on Raghav's side of the field this turn, he should have it pretty easy going for the remainder of this game.
Yeah, it can also just go for a powerful Volt Switch into the opposing the opposing Kyogre.
Kyogre or Rayquaza at this point, now that the Delta Winds are gone.
Yeah, so Kyogre protects itself, doesn't want to take unnecessary damage right here. Raghav still needs to find good board position here as Tapu Koko goes for the Volt Switch into that Kyogre slot here, as Rayquaza using Swords Dance here, getting some attack boosts. We'll have to watch out for that Incineroar to switch right back in, but this Extreme Speed will be doing some big damage.
It will be doing some big damage if Raghav decides to go for it. It's a tough call, since I don't think there's necessarily any downside to Joseph switching in the Incineroar here, and really, if you look at the Pokemon that Raghav has remaining, you almost leave the Groudon on the field and you switch out the Tapu Koko to get the Intimidate in. So yes, Rayquaza could go for the Extreme Speed into the Groudon slot, get that knockout, and then have Kyogre knock out that Incineroar. But as a result, you're getting rid of the attack boost that Rayquaza really needed to KO in terms of being able to hit that Tapu Koko for enough damage before it's able to KO the Kyogre.
Yes. So here's the Extreme Speed. Lands into that Groudon slot here as an Ice Beam from the Kyogre hits into the Incineroar slot, but does not get the KO there.
No.
Yeah, so great position right now for Joseph because he does have access to Fake Out from the Incineroar.
Yeah, and Fake Out can stop Extreme Speed, so just trying to keep that sunlight out on the field for as long as possible so that the Kyogre is really limited in its options. I like that Raghav respected the fact that that was a possible play there and went for the Ice Beam over one of those Water-type attacks, but it just doesn't have the damage output he needs. And right now, as we're really running out of time in this game, if you start looking at the year time on Joseph's side of the field, it's really tough. He needs to just find one opportunity here for big damage, and Joseph has just done such an amazing, consistent job of denying him that opportunity throughout all three of these games.
Yeah, the Primal Groudon switches out as Mega Metagross takes the field here. Incineroar uses Fake Out, hits into that Kyogre to prevent it from being able to go for a very strong Origin Pulse, as Dragon Ascent from the Mega Rayquaza will land into that Mega Metagross slot. It is boosted by a Swords Dance. It's not very effective though, and does about 40% damage to that Mega Metagross here as the defenses drop and Kyogre flinches. Mega Metagross will be doing quite a chunk to that Kyogre with a with a Stomping Tantrum. Could also just fish for a flinch with an Iron Head, so...
You have to... I think the Rayquaza is the bigger target on the field now, though, since it already has the defense drop from the Dragon Ascent in the previous turn. I highly doubt that Incineroar will be sticking around on the field this turn, given that the Rayquaza is currently at +1 attack from that Swords Dance. So, again, just very methodical play here from Joseph, just denying Kyogre the opportunity to go for the Water-type attacks it wants to use, denying Rayquaza the ability to get honestly any KOs at this point, and just trying to do his best to power through. I like how Raghav protected the Rayquaza here, but I don't think an Ice Beam from Kyogre is going to be enough to tie up this game.
Yep, there's an Iron Head into that Rayquaza slot as Ice Beam from Kyogre connects with that Primal Groudon, does good damage, and Groudon
just
hangs
misses
on with
it.
just a sliver of hit points as the Electric Terrain deactivates.
But the Electric Terrain is going to reappear as soon as Tapu Koko makes another appearance.
Right.
So just that Groudon holding on as well, just enough to bring this out one more turn. This gives Joseph another opportunity to deal more chip damage to these Pokemon, and again, just slowly clean things up. You have to wonder how these trainers are feeling mentally right now. I mean, this game has been just
It's
constant.
exhausting.
It's a very exhausting game, back and forth, switch, protect. And I'm really curious to see how this is going to play out, not in terms of who moves on in this game, but how they're going to play going into top 4, just knowing how grueling this top 8 match has turned out to be.
Yeah, and there's the Iron Head from that Mega Metagross onto that Mega Rayquaza slot as
it's
Rayquaza
able to
hangs
hold on.
thanks to that Intimidate from Raghav's Incineroar. So Rayquaza is set up with more Sword Stances, but most likely will only be able to get off with an extreme speed. You have to respect the fact that many Metagross can carry Bullet Punch too, so...
Yeah, so the extreme speed from the Rayquaza is not going to be enough to KO that
well, there is also
Metagross.
Fake Out support too, I forgot about that, yeah.
Yes, but it's a tough spot to be in. I think that Raghav is looking at a turn here where he can easily, knock out both of these Pokemon, but the last two Pokemon then that Joseph has available to him is that Tapu Koko and that Metagross. The Metagross is not going to be able to be knocked out by the extreme speed just due to the fact that it resists the normal type attacking. And yeah, it looks like the Incineroar is able to... Oh, never mind. We're seeing a Z move. So yeah. A little bit of overkill, I think, for that switch. I think that Raghav was really hoping that Metagross would stick around and protect. But hey, a knockout is a knockout at this point.
You just want to make sure you can do as much damage to Incineroar as possible.
Exactly.
Anytime you can, you have an option to do as much damage as you can to an opposing Incineroar, you do it.
And I mean, we're getting a little bit of like a wrestling match intermission here, so that's kind of cool.
Yep.
Yeah. A little bit of WWE action as we enter what hopefully is one of the final turns of this game. I'd
just like to say that all of those powerful attacks we just saw do 18 points of total damage to Joseph's side of the field.
Yeah.
Here we go now into the final two on Joseph's side. It is that Mega Metagross. It's reset all of its Intimidates, which is going to be very important, and the Tapu Koko as well in the back, activating that Electric Terrain. So Joseph's last two Pokemon are going to fall to the Mega Metagross and that Tapu Koko. Raghav still has that Primal Kyogre in the back. It is pretty damaged, though, at about 50% of its hit points.
Yeah, all the Pokemon on Raghav's side of the field are heavily damaged right now, to the point where I don't think you feel comfortable trying to switch in the Kyogre in this situation. I think the best thing that Raghav can hope for here is that the extreme speed from the Rayquaza is going to somehow find a KO into this Tapu Koko.
Yeah.
Or he guesses the Protect correctly from this Tapu Koko and targets down this Mega Metagross for a KO.
Have to guess it.
You have to guess it.
Did Raghav guess it? There's the Protect from that Tapu Koko, as it looks like an extreme speed from that Rayquaza into that Protect, though. And here comes the Bullet Punch from the Mega Metagross, connects with that Mega Rayquaza and gets the KO from this range. But Incineroar is going to be able to move here. How much damage is it going to be able to deal to the Mega Metagross with a U-turn? Not that much damage at all. We'll switch in that Primal Kyogre.
We'll bring the rain back out onto the field, and that means this Incineroar is really
good.
Yeah,
it gets Fake Out for the next turn.
It does get Fake Out for the next turn, and the Tapu Koko did burn its Protect this turn. So potentially this Kyogre could be able to attack this Tapu Koko, but Metagross could go for an Iron Head, and if it gets another flinch, that could be a game.
Oh, and Orange Impulse is not the most accurate of moves either.
We've seen
Raghav's Kyogre miss a lot of Orange Impulse, so smart play, smart pivot right there from Raghav to try to set up another opportunity in case that Protect did happen. But is it going to pay off here? This is going to be tight.
It's going to be tight.
There's a lot of variability here as Tapu Koko goes for a Protect. It fails. There it is.
Where does the Fake Out go?
Fake Out lands into the Tapu Koko slot here. You got it just to make sure that it doesn't go for an attack into that Kyogre. Here's an Iron Head, connects with that Kyogre. Is it going to flinch, though?
I don't know. Oh! And that That is a very unfortunate flinch there for Raghav. He found a way back into this game, but unfortunately Kyogre just was not able to clean up. So really well played by both these trainers. Just hanging in there until the last possible second, but Mega Metagross just finding that flinch with the Iron Head enough times to allow Joseph to pull himself into top 4 here in Portland.
Yeah, that was an intense match.
That was
full
crazy.
Of lots of board position maneuvering that was really intense. It all came down to the wire, though.
It really did. I mean, that was like the marathon, if you think about it. Not only playing all of yesterday and waking up early to come play here today, just 3 very slow, very methodical games of Pokemon.
Yeah. And again, I mean, it was a well-played set. Like, it was beautifully played by both players. There was a lot of maneuvering. There was a lot of board position that needed to be dealt with. And both players were very patient. You know, they were trying to set up their board as best as they possibly could in order to get that position that they really wanted to. But ultimately, you know, you got to applaud Raghav. I mean, there was that last couple turns where that extreme speed in that Tapu Koko Protect, you know, you see that happen and you're just like, wow, that's really unfortunate for you. You hit into that Protect. It was probably going to happen.
Yeah.
And then, you know, Raghav had a backup plan by using that U-turn move to just set up a fake-out turn for the next one. So, you know, you got to applaud Raghav for that well-thought-out process.
Yeah, he found an out. It was just unfortunate that, you know, the odds weren't quite in his favor this time around, but just very well played. I mean, I could have seen that match honestly being the final here in Portland just by how close it was and just how well executed it was by both these trainers.
Yeah, so Joseph is going to face off against Steven Mia. And then on the other side of the bracket for the other top 4 match, it's going to be between Bingji Wang and Gavin Michaels. So
that's going to be interesting.
We still have top 4 here to come, but we're going to take a quick break. But again, when we're back, it's going to be top 4 right away. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.